Well, hello, my name is David. This is A.Parent.Podcast, which is a podcast about parenting, apparently. I've set out to make this podcast because I'm a parent now. I have two kids who are 3 and 1, and they are crazy, and I love them. And I've realized I have a million questions about parenting. And so I'm going to interview a million people. And this is starting off here with my good friends, Riley and Brian Hayes. Riley is just published your first children's book. I'm very excited for you on that.
Yep.
Brian, a school counselor. You guys have kids, correct?
Yes.
And two.
Mm-hmm.
2 kids.
Yep.
Very cool. How, besides the obvious, how did that happen? Is that something that you guys planned on? Something that surprised? Both?
A little bit of
It was
both.
both, yeah.
We had a conversation about a month before we got pregnant with our first, and he's 4.5 now. But we had a conversation about when are we going to start trying for kids? And then the next month we found out that we were pregnant. So,
Wow.
yeah, he was a little bit of a surprise. We weren't quite ready, but we were close enough that it wasn't super surprising, before I took the pregnancy test the night before, Brian was like, this would be the first time where you took this test and it was positive. I think I wouldn't freak out as much. So that was a good sign because
It was literally the first time I had that thought.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, I was like, oh my God, I can't be a parent.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know what changed?
It was getting close to a transition in life for us. I was getting close to the end of grad school. On a career path I was feeling good about, and so it was just kind of a settling period for us.
Sure.
So it's finally at a point where I felt like, yeah, maybe I can actually take care of another human being. Didn't know it was going to be the next day that was going to happen, but it did, and I'm glad it did now.
Yeah.
And I felt like we got some, when we were having that conversation, we were like, we've had some really good time together. We've traveled, we've had time just the two of us to really connect. So we felt like we were getting to that point where we knew each other well enough that we felt like we would be a good team. And
Yeah.
so I honestly think it changed even after we had kids. I thought I knew what I wanted in a partner as a parent. And then once the kids were here, and even once the first kid was here, we had to adjust our parenting and how we partnered with it. And then once we had 2 kids, then that adjusted. I feel like it's a constant state of transition.
Yeah.
But I think back at the very beginning, I just wanted somebody that I knew was going to be around and be there for the long haul, because it's a long haul. So someone who I trusted and I could trust to leave alone with my kids and be there and support. So
I think part of us getting to that point where we knew we were ready was us knowing each other and knowing what our strengths were and what we knew we'd have to fill in for the other person. I knew Riley is always going to bring energy, and I don't always have that. I can be attentive and I can be present, but I don't always bring energy that's needed for parenting. And that's something that she fills in for me. But I don't think we would have known that if we hadn't built that foundation in our relationship and traveled and done things together, had experiences.
hard and good.
Right. All kinds of
seeing each other in
experiences.
those hard situations gives you confidence, but also to figure it out. You have a moment to figure out, okay, that didn't work out in this situation. How would we revamp that to make it work better? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we were just constantly working at it, which I guess is a good thing.
Nice. And so you had a first one.
Mm-hmm.
Were your credentials on each other? Were they good enough?
They were good.
Yeah. And how long of a period of time between the first kid and the second kid?
So our oldest is 4.5, and our youngest is he'll be 2 soon, and so they're about 2 years, 10 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually spent a little bit of time trying for the second one, and he was a surprise, but not a surprise as well.
Sure.
We were doing some medication to help get to the point where I would be able to have another one, and I was on birth control to regulate everything like they tell you to do, and then I got pregnant on birth control both of the kids were born on birth control or got pregnant on birth control. So that's
I didn't know this was like a horror, like suspense podcast.
Yeah.
Warning to everybody.
Warning to everyone out there. Doesn't always work, but we were super, excited.
Sure.
We were wanting to get pregnant, but it was definitely a surprise because we weren't expecting to get pregnant that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're about 2 years to.
Yeah. And we were ready. We wanted another one. We wanted our oldest to have a sibling. And, so we had been trying
for about 10 months. 10 months? I think about 10 months before we actually ended up pregnant. We both have siblings, and I think that kind of played into it a little bit. I mean, I have 2 older brothers, and he's the oldest, and I think just having like somebody there with you, I don't know, that's part of my upbringing. So like when I look at our oldest, I'm like, I can't imagine that life for him without a sibling, even though he would have been just fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it's like, maybe it's like my own espoused belief, like going on to him. I don't know. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar or more to add?
Yeah, I mean, we both had the experience of having siblings that were close in age, and like it was special for both of us growing up, just to have someone else,
Yeah. Yeah. What are your kids' lives like?
Well, they stay home with me during the week, and Bennett goes to preschool 5 days a week in the morning to the preschool that Brian actually went to. It's his same preschool teacher there, which has been really fun and special because she's gotten to like have that connection with both of them.
Yeah.
And so he goes there in the mornings, and Archer stays with me in the mornings, and I try and do some kinds of different activities with them. And and it's hard because in my head I'm trying to balance it out because Bennett got all those years of just my attention and my, feeding into him, and so I'm trying to give Archer equal opportunities.
Sure.
But as I've been doing that, I realize Archer is also very different from Bennett in that, like, his interests are different. So for Bennett, when he was this age, I took him to like a kinder music class, which was great for him and for me at the time. And then now Archer, I thought about taking him to that, and I was like, he's just such a physical child. Like, who he is so much different than Bennett. So I've had to kind of adjust. I almost signed him up for the same exact class and ended up signing him up for like a little gym class for that age. And so just kind of having something like that throughout the week for him to do. And then we do like story times at our library. And that I try and make sure I have a couple of days where we're here at the house, just the 2 of us. So he gets free reign of all the toys, free reign of the house, free reign of mom time kind of thing, just to do that. And then in the afternoons, sometimes we have activities and sometimes we don't. So that's kind of what their life looks like on the daily. It's a little bit of everything.
Sure.
Keep them moving, but I don't know.
And obviously I miss a lot of that, right? Like, because I'm not home. And so I can't speak to a lot of what happens during the day, which it feels weird to be away from them during that time, but I do know they're learning and they're growing and they're having good experiences. But I get afternoon and evening. Like, I come home and it's either playtime or like watch TV and snuggle time, depending on what they've been doing.
Or how you're feeling.
Or how my day was. Yeah, very true. And we'll do dinner together, sometimes a walk or something after dinner. Bath time is my time with them.
I don't like bath time.
Yeah.
I wish.
Why that?
I don't know. I don't like being down on the ground, and I don't like getting wet at the end of my day. But it's turned into his thing, so it's been
it's
been great.
Good. It's like a special.
Yeah, it is.
So,
sure.
Like, that is like their time with him, and then I get to get stuff done, like cleaning the kitchen and stuff, which is great. So it works.
Bennett has lately been obsessed with our old PS2 video games, and so we've been playing like 15 minutes of that together a night, and then we do story time, and then we do bed.
He's doing really good with it, though. We have a timer set, and he kind of knows, like, when this goes off, Dad finishes the task and
save the game.
And then we do story time and brush teeth in bed. So it's kind of the.
So you guys have a pretty elaborate schedule for your kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, you stay with the kids, so I mean, that's obviously a job and a half. But tell me about the thought process of the schedule. Like, is why such a schedule? Why not just this or that?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a couple of moms just recently about how, like, we feel like sometimes now we overschedule. Like, we hear that we overschedule our kids, and like I can agree with that on some terms. Like, I feel like after having that conversation, I've tried to cognitively think like what am I having my kids do? And we've talked recently about how it might be too young to tell this, but we feel like Bennett is more of an introvert because there have been comments where he's been like, why are we always going places and seeing people? And I'm like, whoa, all right. And which is very different. Like, I feel like now I'm trying to figure out how to parent because Archer loves to go and see people. And Bennett is pulling back more to where he's like, he likes his time at home. And so how do you parent those two kinds of kids at the same time? At the very beginning, when I just had Bennett, I didn't have anything to do. And I felt like I was going crazy. Like, I needed some kind of stimulation. I needed to be with other parents. I needed to be with other people. And I wanted him to have that experience being with other kids. And so it started out like that. And then they made friends. And so now when we go out, a lot of it is because they have friends and they have relationships that they want to build too. Like, oftentimes Bennett will ask me, is such and such going to be there? And then he's excited about going kind of thing. So it's turned into that. But I think the main thing I've tried to do is in the afternoon, rein it back in a little bit and just do more at home time because it's really the only time that we can do that kind of thing.
So are you a scheduled person before you had kids?
I don't know. I can't remember. My scheduled person. I think I like to have schedules, but my personality doesn't stick to them.
Sure.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, like you would make plans, but you also like to be spontaneous. Yes. So a lot of times we'd throw the plans out the window.
Like, we'd start that way and be like, okay, we got this plan, and then...
Or just add something to it, you know? But, like, obviously, now that's not always possible with kids.
Yeah.
I think for my sense of being... maybe it is more of, like, a selfish thing, but to help keep me calm, I have to kind of know what's coming because I like to know what to expect and how to keep my kids safe. I think that's part of it. It's just, you know, a lot of times that there's just so many things that could go wrong. Like, even we talked about, like, taking the kids out to eat. When will we learn? Like, it's never a good idea. Like, we could try and we think, oh, it's going to be fun and spontaneous, and then...
I had that moment this morning.
Yeah. You think, oh, it's going to be great. With one kid, it's a little bit easy, you know, and then it changes. So I think back to when we only had one kid, and it was easy breezy. Now we got two, not so much. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you a scheduled person?
Not really.
No.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't really stick to schedules very well. Deadlines never work for me. I'm always procrastinate. Like, I need a certain level of, like, knowing what's coming, but not necessarily, like, the details of when stuff's gonna happen.
Which is unfortunate because I give him an extraordinary amount of details. It's excessive.
But I've learned to, you know, do that a little bit better when it involves the kids. I mean, obviously, like, they need a certain level of structure and expectation so that their emotions don't go haywire and, you know, their behavior doesn't change.
I find it goes a lot easier when they're prepped for what's coming. So I think part of me giving you a lot of details is giving them a lot of details as well. And so he just happens to be a bystander of my many details, but I feel like the more details I give them, usually the smoother it goes. Not always, but that's just...
Yeah.
We're big on prep.
Do you feel like your kids have a lot of say in the schedule, or that you're pretty strict to it?
No, they have a lot of say. I mean, it's a schedule, but it's very flexible, I think. I mean... Yeah,
like, we'll ask Bennett's input, like, the day before.
Yeah.
Like, you know, here's what we're thinking for tomorrow. You know, what do you think? Is that something you want to do? Mm-hmm. Sometimes he's excited. Sometimes he tells us no. Yeah. And then we can adjust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's got tons of input.
Yeah.
Archer a little bit. He still can't communicate very well.
Sure.
Yeah, and he doesn't quite... He just kind of goes with the flow at this point.
Doesn't have very strong opinions on those things yet, but...
One day he will, and we'll have to cross that road.
So strong opinions that come up.
Yes.
The no's, the doesn't want to do it on a schedule item or an obligation or a safety thing come up.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Depends on the situation and my mood. I think if it's safety, I think I don't know. I follow the Big Little Feelings, the Instagram account. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they talk a lot about like just how to handle situations, just way to verbalize things where you're not freaking them out and freaking yourself out, and creating more what's the word I'm looking for, more like anxiety to the situation, and coming into the situation calm. It does not always happen because I'm human and they're human, and sometimes those things clash. But on a perfect day, I can come in and have a calm response to like, I'm hearing this, but this is why, kind of thing. I try and give them a reason why, but
I think that's the key. For me, is like they're little. They don't see the big picture. Like they don't necessarily know what's dangerous and what's not, or why it's important that we do, go somewhere, or why we don't go there. So, trying to just take time to teach and, tell them what's going on and why we don't run into the road when there's a car coming,
Sure.
Like consequences of what could happen is important. I think that's the main thing that we both have connected with. Like we want to take the time to tell our children why we think something or why we do something, not just say like, because I said so. That doesn't really work for us.
Yeah, I never like hearing it, so I'm assuming they don't like to hear. You know what I mean?
We want to honor them enough to let them know why we do things.
Right.
Give them that insight.
And it's sometimes hard to bring yourself back down, because when you said safety, the first thing that came to my head was this phase that Bennett had where he was running to the road. Do you remember that? I mean, it was not fun. And I remember I reached out to a lot of like friends of mine who have older kids, and I'm like, did you go through this? Like, what did you do? That kind of thing. And a lot of them were just like, it's safety for you, got to just snatch them at that point. And so it's kind of like, I've obviously got to keep him safe, but then afterwards, following up, I have to like recollect myself before I can say anything to him or them at this point. And it doesn't always come out as calm or clear as I would like it to. But
so, you give me just a second to think, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a situation that the explanation is not super obvious for a kid. It's like a social obligation, like, hey, we just need to stop yelling, and there's not a really good reason that they could understand.
Right.
I mean, what's a parent to do in your experience? I'm asking tough questions to figure out.
I mean,
I just still think like addressing them in a way that's, I don't know, treating them like an equal partner in the conversation. Like, even if it's something they don't understand, just to verbalize that. Just say, I know this might not make sense to you, but I need you to trust me, that in the situation, this is the right thing for us to do. And maybe it'll make more sense one day. Like, even though they might not totally get it, I still think like having the conversation that way rather than just, well, I said to do it, just do it.
Sure.
I still think that brings a level of trust from them, and it honors them and values them, and shows that we are, hearing their voice as well.
And trying to put some of that power back in their hands, I feel like has been, like when you're having that conversation, I can't remember I'm trying to think of a certain instance where Bennett was just like, we had someplace to be, and like a set time as like a doctor's appointment or something where we need to be there, and he was having a breakdown over what he was going to wear kind of thing. And I just had to, I was like, okay, I understand you don't want to do this, I hear you, but we're going. would you like this to wear or this to wear? And just giving him, or do you want to take a toy in the car? Or do you want to, giving him some kind of choice after that, giving him something he can say yes to on his own, I think sometimes helps calm him down because it puts some of that power back in his hand. Like he is a part of the decision to go to the doctor kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
But
I'd say some people, just as a thought experiment, like some people would argue that some of this behavior is a punishable offense. I mean, what do you feel as though there are ways in the scenario at which there would be punishment? Do you have any thoughts on punishment in children?
I think we like to fall back a lot on natural consequences. So like, Bennett doesn't want to wear his coat. He's cold. I mean, and he just learns through that way. It doesn't always happen, but we try and use what's in the moment, I guess. But we don't really do timeout. It doesn't work for our kids. I mean, maybe for some kids it works, and maybe in some families it works. But in our family, with our kids, it doesn't seem to connect with them in any way. So
yeah, I mean, it just timeout to me is about exclusion and shame, and like I don't think those are great motivators to learn different behavior.
That's what I say it, yeah.
And so yeah, we don't really do that. We don't do any kind of physical punishment, spanking. Like again, I don't think that teaches anything new to a child who acted in an unexpected way or a way that was not appropriate. It doesn't really help them learn any different, So I think it's always about education for us.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, when I think about, like, I don't want Bennett to hit me, or I don't want him to hit any of his peers. If I'm hitting him as a punishment, he's seeing that it is okay in certain situations. I feel like I just don't want to give him that message. Like Archer's kind of in this phase where he hits me right now, and it's, it obviously doesn't hurt. He's 2. It's like, but he thinks it's funny, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to I'm not going to hit him back or like spank him or anything. So we talk about like the difference between what our kind hands can do and what our like unkind or mean hands do, that kind of thing. And so I just try and redirect it to like, oh, that's not a nice thing for your hands to do. What's something nice your hands? They can clap, they can high five, they can hug, that kind of thing. So I think redirecting it, and he responds to that because then he starts laughing, even if he's in like a bad mood hitting it. I don't know. But I mean, it sounds easy, but it's not.
It's not easy, but I mean, there's the same underlying like philosophy for us that hopefully what we are doing is teaching and not just punishing for punishment's sake. Like we want whatever we do to be like restorative for them instead of just like retribution for a wrongdoing.
Some would argue maybe that something like spanking or a punishment, taking away something or grounded, or specifically spanking. Some would argue that it is a natural consequence model. That they do a wrong action, they know that there's that consequence that's going to happen, and it kind of gives them an association of this action has negative consequences.
Right.
Potentially less threatening than the consequences if they did it as they got older, or they did it when their parents weren't around.
Right.
What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I could see how there could be a correlation, but I still think like you would only change your behavior to avoid getting hurt, and not necessarily because it's the right thing to do or because you understand the impact that your actions have on other people. Like I still think it's better to teach through the motivation for why your behavior changes rather than just scaring somebody into doing what you think they should do. So I hope that makes sense, but
sure.
I just think it may very well have that effect for some people, and it may work in some sense. You might see a change in behavior, but I just think internally, I don't know if you get the real change in character that you might be hoping for. Whereas if a child really gets, why their behavior needs to be different and changes in order to make that apparent, I think you would have a better result.
See what you did there. And I think just like knowing your kid, like when I look at Bennett and like I know my relationship with him, I know Brian's relationship with him, he would not respond in the way that is the stereotypical way to respond to that. I mean, he would break down, and I don't want my kid to fear me either. I'm not saying like I want to be his best friend. He needs to know that I'm here to keep him safe. I'm here. But at the same time, I've seen him scared of me, and I don't like that. Like it doesn't create a sense of trust, which is really the ultimate goal. I want him to trust me and trust that I'm trying to keep him safe. And so for our family and our situation, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for our kids
I believe the argument is on the opposing for what you're saying is that, the fearing of the parents is the training for the potential consequences early on. Or maybe paired with the spanking, the explanation of why you did it, so that they know why, and so potentially they can change the character wise. So it's like they get the immediate reaction, and then they have the thought to talk about it. And I think that's one of the main responses, as far as I understand, to a perspective. But I'd like to hear a little more, if you don't mind. So, have you guys always felt this way? Did you grow up in this kind of mentality were your parents like this?
No, I mean, mine were. I was spanked as a kid. And, that's why, I hear what you're saying. Like, I really do. And it does connect with me, because that's a lot of my upbringing. I was spanked when I did things that were severe, and there was follow-up after, but for me, and this is my experience, it still created kind of an odd dynamic with my parents to me. Like love and fear and harm and care all getting mixed up and intertwined. It's just kind of confusing. And so don't hear us as saying that what we believe should be prescribed for everybody, because I don't think that. I think people have different cultures and different beliefs and backgrounds, and people have the choice to raise their kids in that way, but this is kind of what has worked for us and what we've come to. And we have always felt this way as parents. But
we talked about it early on.
We did. I was way early in our conversation.
Because regardless, we wanted to be consistent with whatever we decided. From, obviously things change, but we felt like this was one of the instances where we needed to be consistent to be effective.
Yeah.
In whatever we chose to do with our kids. But,
Absolutely. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. It's my first podcast. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to, if I'm someone who, if I'm going to spend my time expressing my opinions, or if I'm going to try to be as neutral as possible.
I think you can do both.
That's kind of my goal in this. And I just want to affirm that, I very much value that y'all's desire to view your children as people, and to try to make sure they understand the reasonings behind your things, let them have some agency in decision making, so they can have their own independence and growth. I'm on board for these things, and I'm not just because I'm bringing up any kind of potential viewpoint that is opposite. It's not, or even if it's not opposite, just
different.
It's not a refute. It's just I'm really interested to see how these ideas flash out with different people. I like to hear everybody's opinions on these things.
And like Brian said, it's every family unit is so different, and every situation is so different.
Right. Because some people grew up and were spanked, and then they grow up and they decide they spank their kids. And it works for them, for whatever reason, and in their background it works, so it is interesting to think about why some people parent the way that they were parented, and why some people choose to do different. It is interesting to think about.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm kind of doing this podcast is I basically want to do a giant survey of all the people's experiences with their life, their raising of children, their parents' relationship. Especially since I've become a parent, it's kind of all I can think about nowadays.
Yeah.
But I'd like to hear your experience, if you don't mind, about growing up. Brian was telling us about his experience.
Yeah, I remember being threatened to be spanked, but I was never actually spanked. My mom was a big communicator, big talker, and so we yelled through a lot of stuff. And it's interesting because when Brian entered our family, he realized they duke stuff out right then and there. We talk about it when it happens, and I think that's just part of we don't let things sit around. We just get it all out there in the open in front of every single person in the family. It just, unless they're not interested, and they can leave, like that. But I mean, that wasn't really my upbringing. It wasn't very physical. But I never really thought about how that would affect my parenting at all until we got here. Yeah. But when I think about spanking and that kind of thing, I think about as an adult, if I was hit, would that motivate me to change? Or no, I'm a feisty person. I'm not gonna do what's expected of me in that moment. And I feel like I look at my kid, and he's got a lot of me in him. And I know maybe in that moment, hitting him might, spanking him might feel like it's effective in that moment, but I know he's going to come back harder the next time because I know that's me. So I don't know. I just think about as an adult how that translates. I'm not going to be motivated by that.
Sure.
So, I don't know.
So is there a punishment system in your house? I mean, let's define punishment. How do you guys define punishment?
I think consequences.
Consequences?
We really try and draw on whatever the situation is.
Yeah. I mean, we more lean towards taking away privileges.
Yeah.
Than punishment.
Yeah.
So, it's more like.
So how do you define punishment?
That's tough. That's really tough because, society defines punishment as retribution. You're getting paid back for what you did wrong. It's so it's harm that's paid back to you. But I don't know. I think punishment could be reframed a little bit. Just to be.
Is there a better word for your value there?
Resolution or restoration, I think fit better with what I think we want. When somebody acts in a way that's unexpected or that harms somebody, punishment is only going to go so far. It doesn't, even if they harm somebody, I don't think that's going to fix what happens. If you punish that person, there's got to be something more, something bigger that happens to restore it. And to find a resolution, so that's more. I think of punishment intervening in a situation where my kid's done something wrong. The goal is not to just cause some harm or pay back for what you did, but I want to find a resolution. I want to find a way to restore what's been broken, so that we can learn and do better next time.
And never have I found myself in a more stressful parenting situation than when one of the kids hurts another one of the kids. Whether it be on accident or on purpose, it's finding that consequence, especially if it's on accident. It's kind of a klutzy kid, and so sometimes he'll just be going really, really fast and not paying attention to where his body is, and then it hits Archer, and then he falls, and it's just utter chaos. And it's just getting him to slow down long enough to be okay, there's consequences for you not paying attention, that kind of thing. But then when it's on purpose, it's a whole other bear, trying to talk to him. And I feel like my mind is in like processing mode, trying to figure out the right words to say, how to help him understand what has happened. I think a big part of it is like wanting him to have some empathy. Like, what's happened? Like, what is Archer doing? Like, he's crying, he's sad. Why is he sad? Like, just I feel like talking a lot about that kind of stuff. And then a lot of times it's taking away consequences, like, or taking away privileges, that kind of thing. We talk about, you know, oh, you took too long doing this. We're not going to have time to play Spyro tonight, or we're not going to have time to do X, you know, something that you enjoy. Just bring back to putting the responsibility on him. This took a long time to resolve. This took, you know, it took a long time to clean the playroom, that kind of thing. So now we're not going to we have time to take a bath because we have to take a bath, but we're not going to have time to do this after, you know, like something that's enjoyed.
Sure. Framing
it as it's back on him, not I'm taking this away from you on purpose. It's, oh man, we ran out of time kind of thing. So I think that's kind of what we try and do. Doesn't always work out though.
Sure. So it's a situation that's in my mind that comes up similar to that, but that is on the parent. Like you tell them not to do something, and they do something that you just told them not to do.
The worst.
In that point, it's like that's maybe on you. I mean, what's the response in there? Like, I mean, what's the natural consequence?
We had that happen.
Well, I mean, I still think it's kind of coming back to like taking away a reward. You know, like if it happens in the morning and we're supposed to go to the park later, you know. My way of saying it, I might do it wrong, but it would be, you know, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to go to the park and be safe. Because I just, you know, let you know something I needed you to do to be safe, and you didn't follow what I said, so I don't know if we're going to be able to go. This doesn't seem like a safe idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a way that I would handle it. I don't know if that's kind of what you think, but
yeah. I mean, I think it's just all about how you frame it, so to like help them think about the situation a little bit more, and to let them know. I mean, I think we try and be pretty honest with like, I can't handle that right now, you know, because a lot of times it is on me. I don't want to take you to the park. Like if I'm gonna have to be dealing with this the whole time, kind of thing, and maybe that's not the right thing to let them know. But sometimes I think they need to know that how they're reacting affects other people too.
Sure.
So you're acting a fool. It's going to affect how I treat, you know, how I handle you at the park, and how I, you know, and I don't feel like being the bad guy today, kind of thing. So I don't know. It's a daily.
Yeah.
It changes daily.
It does. Moment to moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you're still in the temper tantrum stage.
I think we're just entering.
Like us?
Oh.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. You guys are still in the temper tantrum stage. How do you handle that whenever your kid needs you?
That's a good question. I hand them off to him. Run away.
Temper tantrums are hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are hard.
They're triggering a little bit.
Yeah. I imagine it's hard to take away a reward in those moments when they don't care about anything.
It's just, honestly, for those moments, it's just being present and, you know, letting them have those feelings.
Letting them be mad.
Like, I mean, we have big feelings. Even adults have big feelings.
Sure.
And, you know, as long as they're expressing those in a way that's safe, like, they're allowed to have those feelings. And then afterwards, we can talk about what that's going to mean as far as consequences, as far as what we need to do next time. But yeah, you can't, like, that's not really the time for parenting in those moments, but it's the time for being present and just affirming feelings and giving space for that.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's hard for me, especially now that we have another kid, is like, say one of the kids is having a tantrum, one of them is having a good time, like they're enjoying playing in the playroom.
Yeah.
I think one of the things has been, I read somewhere to do this, and it seemed to work. It was like a sense of helping him step away. So like, say Archer's having a good time playing and Bennett's just losing it, and I talk to him and I'm like, okay, this is a family space and we're having a good time as a family. We want you to join us, kind of thing. But it's not enjoyable with you screaming right now. So I'm going to help move you to your room. The door's open. And when you feel like you're ready to come out, we would love for you to join us. And that so far has worked. I know that would not work with every kid, but right now that works. I'm sure eventually he'll come barreling out of there as soon as I put him in there. But right now he's at an age and in a stage where it works. And it's just kind of like helps him step away and kind of recalibrate. And really what he does is he goes and lays on his bed and holds a stuffed animal, which I think is good self-regulating,
it's
kind
a
of
coping skill.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, yeah.
So, and then eventually he'll be like, I'm ready to go. Like he's obviously not ready, but he's telling himself he is. He's getting himself in the mindset of coming back in. And then usually he forgets whatever he was upset about.
Sorry, having, some flashbacks.
Personal connection.
Oh, geez. Okay. So some questions I'd be curious of. So you've kind of went over a lot of your parenting philosophies, I believe, in here. You have younger children now. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like your philosophies are something that are going to be applicable to as they get older?
I hope they'll set a foundation for when they're older, just to trust us with stuff, because I don't know, to trust us that we have their best interests, and we really do want the best for them. We want to keep them safe. We want them to feel safe with us, because the world is scary and big and people are horrible. And I want them to feel like they have the space to come and be who they are, express what they're feeling in a place that they know they're not going to be judged, they're going to be loved, they're going to be accepted. So I feel I hope what we're doing now is kind of laying the foundation for that, but who knows?
I think the basis is there,
and
that can follow them all the way through into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, communication and honoring them, who they are, all of those things I think can apply. The details will change with each stage, as they already have.
And each kid. And each phase of
each
our life.
personality, as they develop too.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think the whole thing about parenthood and familyship is that it's an ever-changing puzzle. You think you've got it figured out, and then the next day something changes, and it shifts the entire puzzle. And so you're just constantly in a state of, how do we make this work? Kind of
Which
thing.
has been one of the hardest things about parenting for me. Because, before we had Bennett, I was reading books, I was researching, I was I'm going to find out everything to do about how to be a parent. I'm going to be great. And so I, learned a lot about the baby stage. And I knew what was going on. And then it was a month later, and all of a sudden I didn't know what to do. And then a month later again, I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And so it's just been it's been challenging for me personally, because I don't like that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But parenting puts me in that place every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it's been good growth for me too.
Yeah.
To do that.
Well, and even the books, they're in 1 week they should be doing that, 2 weeks, and it's
they stopped giving you mile markers after a while.
Right.
Yeah, I think
ours never followed them.
No,
anyway.
and that's the thing. That's the thing is we even got the baby's second year of life book or whatever, and so we would read along. I stopped reading it because I was nope, my kid does not follow this at all. I think every kid is just so different. Every family is so different. You can't put the mile markers on it, and
you just have to get to know your kid,
Yeah.
and that's fresh every day.
Mhm.
You can't put parenting, or you can't put a kid in a box and say, okay, I understand this now.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, you're not. I don't think you're going to be a very good parent, at least not for very long.
Yeah.
But I think you always got to be open to whatever new experience is going to happen.
Because Bennett's and Archer are going to wake up tomorrow and be completely different kids than they were today. So you just roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
But then that's where the structure comes in. I feel like the structure's good in that sense, because it's they know kind of what to expect, but they get to experiment with who they are in a structured environment, I guess. I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah.
One of the questions I was going to ask was, is there something, are there principles, are there values, are there things that you guys think that you wish more parents would do that was more universally accepted? And I know you spoke a little bit about saying, every situation is a little different, and I mean, there's a lot of context with everything, but are there any kind of overarching principles or or even like stupid family traditions like that you feel is like this should really be more people doing it. And I'm sure you have some insight also as a school counselor.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of families and a lot of different kids and how things operate, good and bad. I guess just the biggest thing, I just wish parents would let their children express themselves and not judge, not be quick to judge. Just to be present with their kids in the moment, even if what they're saying or what they're doing is outlandish, right? Like giving them the time and space to figure that out, just working through it with them, affirming who they are, right? I think it can be powerful. And so that's something I really wish more parents would do. And I think it's especially true more for like adolescents with the students I work with. But I think it can work all the way through, from young kids to young adults. I just, as a general principle, I think that's something that would make things better for everybody involved.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I want to ask you that same question, but I want to follow up on that really quick. I guess some of the thoughts that come to my head are that some people might say, I mean, to what degree is allowing somebody to express themselves versus giving guidance or parental wisdom based on experiences? It's like, are you going to let all natural consequences hit the child, or are you going to try to warn them about this might be a pitfall?
Yeah, there's limits for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, but that's super contextual, and it's really hard to...
It's hard without specifics.
Yeah.
But I think there's a way you can do a little bit of both. Like I think there's a way you can hear and understand, where your child's at, what they're going through. And I think you can affirm that while also offering other insight and things for them to think about. Like I don't think it has to be one or the other. But I don't think you would just let them, if they're doing something that's going to cause harm to themselves, to other people, obviously you're going to find a way to put a stop to it. But if they're within safe bounds and it's a matter of expressing and them figuring out who they are, I don't think we have to put a stop to all of those things. I think we can be there and let things play out a little bit and offer guidance when necessary, but more offer presence instead of guidance.
All right, I like that. Riley.
Yes.
Is there anything that, you deal with your two kids every day, all the time.
Yes.
Is there anything that you have values or principles or things, or just pet peeves you wish people would stop doing? Anything?
I think one of the things that, just from when I go out and about with the boys, that would be, and I think it is becoming a little more accepted, is just when they do have a breakdown, it's not like, oh man, like, that parent doesn't know how to parent. Like, they're not parenting how I would parent. I think it's becoming a little more accepted. Like, they're doing what they can do to the best of their abilities. At least that's how I feel when I'm around a lot of other moms. Sometimes when there's an older generation or a younger generation, I'm like, I'm sure they wish I was handling this differently. But I'm in it. I'm in the trenches right now trying to figure this out in the moment, how to best serve my kid and, be a good parent in this certain situation. And so I feel like it's becoming more accepted, but I feel like I wish on a universal level, in a perfect world, everyone would just mind their own, in the nicest way, like to just let me deal with it instead of staring. I feel more pressure. I feel more, like I'm not going to be a good parent if somebody's like, how are you going to handle this? Like putting that pressure on me. I'm not going to handle it the way that I would love to handle it and the way that internally I know my kid would respond to. Instead, I'm feeling the pressure of they want me to handle this quickly because they're annoyed, at this next table. So then I get more up in his face. He gets more riled up. It just isn't so I think that's, I don't know. I feel like if we could accept the tantrums a little bit, because it's just part of being a kid and exploring what's happening around you, you know? And as a parent, I'm going to do my best to, like, I want to set him up for, both of them up for success, you know?
Sure.
And so I'm going to take them out of a situation if I feel like it's not working. But ultimately, I want them to be able to function in situations and be successful and feel that success.
So these other parents who were given the slide looks, they figured out how to make tantrums go away quick.
I mean, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And maybe they're like, I mean, how's she going to handle that? Because I don't know how I'd handle that. Maybe that's the, you know, and that's pressure too. No matter what, the pressure just isn't good for me. So I don't know. Because I know sometimes when I like notice a situation, I'm like, oh man, how would I, you know, like that's the thought going through my head. Like, okay, if this was my kid, what would I do? I don't know. I got nothing. So usually that's it.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's just problem solving every day.
It is.
Literally new information to take in, factor, and the hope that it comes out good.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do.
Oh yeah. Problem solving and negotiating. I feel like I spend half my time negotiating with
oh,
the kids.
Goodness. Absolutely. So, one last question I want to ask you guys. What parts do you want your kids to take on and like continue on and to the next generations?
You want to go first?
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, there's
maybe parts you don't want them to take.
Yeah, like
you want to answer that first?
That's where my mind immediately goes.
Yeah.
Well, answer that question.
Don't do this.
Part A.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I hope that they will take from me the ability to think through things.
Yes, I hope they get that from you.
I mean, like, it causes me to be slow to react to things a lot of times, which can be a negative, but I think overall it works for me, and I think I'd like that to be something that they learn to do, you know? Not so analytical that they get stuck and freeze, but, you know, willing to see things from different perspectives, willing to sit with things for a little bit. Like, I really hope that's something that they'll learn from me and apply to situations in their lives.
Yeah. Because one thing I love about Brian is that he is slow to speak, and so when he does speak, you listen because you know he's not just talking to talk. He's talking because he's put a lot of thought into what he's going to say. So it's usually something important and profound, and I hold on to it, you know, like when we're in those conversations. So I don't know. I hope our kids get that too.
You have to come up with something.
I've got it.
Okay.
I hope they come away with my energy for life, like finding, not necessarily being like an optimist. I don't think I'm necessarily an optimist. I don't really put a label on it, you know. I'm not an optimist or a realist or anything, but I try and find joy, and I try and bring a lot of joy into like the activities that we do, and try and, you know, and I want them to be able to do that, because I think the world is not always a friendly place, and I feel like if they can grab onto that from me and take it into their adulthood and their, you know.
I so hope they get your passion and your zest and your enthusiasm for life. Yeah, because like that, you inspire me in that way, because I don't always have that.
I'm hoping to take some with me before I go.
Right. But really, I do hope that they get that, and I know they already are. But you know, throughout their adult life, I do hope they take that.
There are times when you need to be able to hold on to something happy or find something in like a mundane moment.
You're good at that.
I think I'm right with that. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to give you a second here to plug your new book. You're a children's book author. What's the name of your book?
The World's Biggest Snowman, and I wrote it because Bennett absolutely loves snow, and so it just kind of was inspired by that. And then my brother was the illustrator, so it was a fun family project. And I started, when I wrote the story out originally, Bennett put down his toy, which is unheard of, in a moment and came over and sat down and listened without pictures, without having anything. It was just like the first copy of it. And I was like, oh, like it's actually a good enough story that my kids' attention is grabbed. So I kind of ran with it and went from there. So it's for sale now, bettertogetherbooks.net.
bettertogetherbooks.net. I want to put the link in the description.
All right.
I feel so legit saying that. I've really enjoyed you guys inviting me to your home, allowing me to record you guys and pick your brains and ask you uncomfortable questions. So thanks for being a part of the very first podcast, apparently. And let's get some more wine. I don't know. Just more wine.
There you go.
You gotta do like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And buy my merch.
That's right. Like and subscribe. Smash that like button. If you want to be interviewed, contact me. Let's have lunch. You can buy. And got at that point, I'm so tired.
Apparently.